And as some of you have already been witness to his magic, you, and those of you who haven't, will soon learn how just so very incredible he is. And we thank Michelle for actually bringing him to this program from the beginning, and that he has stayed with us this long. So everybody, please welcome.
Best intro ever, thank you. So I want to say a quick word about why I teach what I teach. When I was going back to the womb, as soon as I think grade 1, I went to a private school in Calgary and I started singing. I was singing as soon as I was born. I was a singer, apparently. And all through elementary, I was in choirs, joined the Calgary Boys Choir. I had the luck to end up at Western Canada High School, so I ended up in probably one of the best high school choirs in the country at that time. So I was singing. Started solo lessons with a teacher here in Calgary. Everything was going great, did festival, and then took a degree in it. And ended up at the U of C, taking with a teacher who shall not be named, and I instantly started having vocal problems. It started to feel like I had razor blades going across my throat whenever I sang. And at that time, at least in Calgary, there didn't seem to be anyone who could figure out what was going on with me. And also at that time, anxiety wasn't really a thing. And talking about muscle tension creating issues with the voice wasn't a thing, really. So as a result, I had to stop singing, which did not do wonders for my emotional well-being. Luckily, because of the way the route went, I started conducting, and if you've heard of the Calgary Renaissance Singers and Players, I had them for 10 years. I started Spiritus Chamber Choir, so I just turned my music into another avenue. About 6 years in, I met a girl, and she said, "Buddy, you really need to take yoga." Now, yoga wasn't really a thing back in the early 90s either, not the way it is now. And so my image was a little brown guy like this, floating an inch off the floor and going home. That was what was in my head. But this girl, whatever this girl suggested, I probably would have done. So I said, sure, all right, I'll do yoga, whatever. And during my very first yoga class, I had a massive emotional release. And after that, I sang, and I found that my voice was better for about 20 minutes to half an hour, and the lights came on. So I didn't know I had a ton of anxiety, and a bit of depression, and a ton of muscle tension because I was an extremely sensitive kid, and I just held a lot in my body. So I immediately went, okay, I'm into this yoga thing. And I started a teacher training program way earlier than I should have because I was so keen, and they just said, yes, let's have you. And as I started wiggling around the floor and playing with yoga, I found my voice started to open and more light bulbs came on. And then other people started coming to me for the same thing. And so that's how I've ended up here. And because of all the tension I had, and when you do 4 hours of yoga a day for 2 years in a 2-year teacher training program, which we don't have anymore, you're going to learn stuff about yourself whether you like it or not. You're going to change. So here we are today. So also, second thing I want to say is please ask questions. Please throw out your hand if something doesn't make sense. Please offer. There's a ton of wisdom in this room. Just talk, okay? I want this to be. We're not going to be sitting here the whole time either. We're going to do some standing and playing with what I'm talking about here. The third thing, the third prologue, is some of this, especially for those of you that haven't worked with me before, will not fully land until we do those morning vocal yoga classes. And that's okay, right? So whatever kind of piques your interest, write it down. You're also welcome to take screenshots. I'm kind of okay with you sharing it on social media if you feel so inclined, but do whatever you have to do to make yourself happy, okay? But please do ask questions as we go, all right? So, brilliant first picture. Thank you very much. I did it all myself. It's about balance, yes? Balancing muscles. We want the freedom, we want the spin, yet we need the rock down here, yes? And that sometimes gets turned around, which is what we're talking about today. So, step one.
Oh no.
So, this is still going on, in case anyone's wondering. Yeah, and we'll talk about why, and I get it. It feels like it is, but it isn't at all. It's a completely different set of muscles, and we'll talk about it. But any of these sound familiar?
Oh, yeah.
Because we're all trying our best. And the basic reason that Appoggio support seems to be hard to teach and or hard to learn is we all feel it differently. So there's a fabulous book, if any of you are interested, in reading it, called Great Singers on Great Singing by Jerome Hines. Great Singers on Great Singing by Jerome Hines. Jerome was one of our greatest Canadian baritones in history. It's good to know about him in general. Beautiful singer. And he went around to the greatest singers and singing teachers of the 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe 70s, I'd say, and asked them for their tips. What are their number 2 things that they teach the greatest opera singers in the world, or that they've learned as some of the greatest opera singers in the world? And every single one of them described support differently. And even if they described it the same, they thought something different was happening physiologically. So that means if I, as a voice teacher, tell you how I feel support, I have a 9 out of 10 chance of probably screwing you up. Because you will talk to singers that have or have had great careers. Some of them will say, oh, pelvic floor, it's all about that pelvic. I feel that pelvic floor every time I sing. Another one, never felt my pelvic floor in my life. I just feel this. Another said, oh, it's something like this. I really do not know what it is, but it is this. Right? And they're all right. They're all correct because it works for them to some extent. But it gets very confusing. And to me, this is why it gets confusing, because we all feel it differently. There are some physiological truths, but we don't necessarily feel those physiological truths the same. So then we have to come up with different language. So what I've created is a system, and this is what we'll be doing in the mornings, that helps you feel what your support feels like, as opposed to telling you what you should feel. Right? This is one of my mantras. Voice problems have nothing to do with the voice. Keep that in mind as we keep going. So what does it have to do with? Look where poor little imagination is. Stop. So this seems sort of woo-woo at first. But what tends to happen with all of this is energetically our thoughts are way ahead and they're pulling our body with us. Have to get this done, have to get this done, have to get this done. And we forget, or because we're going so fast, we feel like we're in fight or flight, and then where are we breathing? Where's the breath? Yeah, exactly. And what is that? That's fight or flight. That's hostile breathing, which we don't want for singers, right? And we're in a training program, and we're just go, 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 and all these pressures, and be a good person, and be a friend, and get all this stuff done. And these life habits, even if we don't know it, what they tend to do is get into our back brain and we embody them. And then we have to put a different hat on for our voice lesson. So if we're breathing up here, or too many times a minute for most of the week, and we have 1 hour of a voice lesson a week, what's going to win? Life, not the voice lesson. Right? So just knowing this, it's not a blame thing, just knowing it and starting to change our life habits will help everything. And yes, the fact that we're disconnected right here is absolutely on purpose. This is actually what's happening. And again, this is part of what will make even more sense. I'm sure you all get it, but it'll make even more sense as we do the mornings. So, to me, anyway, these are the 5 greatest challenges we face as we work towards healthy phonation. I'm not talking about language, I'm not talking about character, text, pronunciation, diction. I'm talking about singing with a capital S. Imagination is our most important tool as an artist, and it tends to get beaten out of us in school. Any questions about that, or is that yeah, I get it. Thinking and imagining are 2 different parts of the brain. This is character. Acting. Joy of singing. Have to have that turned on. So remember these for a moment. And now take a look at this list. This isn't all the time. But does this ring a bell? So what I'm offering here, and what I've found in my teaching, is that every single thing on this list will be either helped or completely, I don't like the word, but I'll use it to be clear, fixed by figuring this stuff out. What's a different approach? And so this is illustrating voice problems that have nothing to do with the voice. I've even got tempo in there. Anyone want to take a crack at explaining that one?
You fall behind because you're not breathing.
You got it. Yeah, and muscle tension. Yeah. You hear this in large choirs a lot. God love them, the basses. But often, not always, in large symphonic choirs, the basses are all over 55, and they're in the back, and they have a ton of chest tension, and they're going to sing those notes in that Brahms piece loud and strong, and they're always behind. They're like, can you listen to the altos? They're like, we are listening to the altos. And you just be in time, like, right? And it's not their fault. It's just that their mechanism is a imperial warship, not an X-wing fighter. It just can't move that fast, and it's because of tension. It's not because of musical smarts. Right? So all this stuff, diction, pronunciation. How about that one? Want to take a shot at that? Yes, Julie.
I was working on this week. I have a whole mental game of how I think vowels should be constructed,
Yeah.
as opposed to that are very different from how I say them, or so I'm told.
Yeah.
And I think that comes from just an inability to listen and let go of what they should sound like,
Yeah.
and instead cling to my construction.
Yeah, I like that. Well, we need to go through that process. We need to learn the IPA. But then what tends to happen is we're working so hard on that, we start to create tension here, and then that tongue comes back and the tongue comes up, and then why isn't that diction working as well, right? This is just because we're thinking too much. We're not in it. We're not in flow. Articulation, that's easy. Pitch, timbre, passaggio, that's pretty obvious. Get that breathing under control, those passaggio issues start to disappear. All right, so I like this one. I cannot tell you how many times, and for better or for worse, this is the case, it's usually women, and they're usually over 35 or 40, and they come in and say, I was the biggest voice in my choir in grade 3, and I got told to shush. And she comes in 35 years later wondering why she can't speak her truth and why she can't sing, and why she doesn't feel like she can speak truthfully to people she knows. The choir director's doing their job, they bring the rest of the people up to her, they don't tell her to do that. It can be very emotionally damaging, and we need to know that. This one's obvious, right? Judgment! And just that. Knowing how to practice is hard. Learning how to practice is harder. Because again, everybody's different. So, what's that? Look at the first, look at the second syllable. Say louder. It's a fear of singing. Yeah. What's this?
Speaking.
Yeah, fear of public speaking. Yeah. And this is the term we use for vocal issues, vocal notes, etc., etc. Doesn't even have to go that far, just tension in the voice area. And we don't know we have the physical tension often. This is why it's about awareness and why we're doing the vocal yoga. You know, oh, I've got tension here. I've got more than I thought I did. I didn't realize how much it's affecting my voice. It takes time. But often with beginning singers, we have this, and it's affecting the voice, and then we start to think, oh, I just can't sing. And then we stop. Now, we're past that point, but this is what's happening out there. So, I want to talk about this one a little bit. Living life makes us hold our breath. Can you stand up for a second, please? For those of you who've done this before, know what's coming. Okay, so when you stood up, did you hold your breath? Busted. So this is step one of starting to live like a performing artist more than we tend to do. Sit. Oh, you did it again. I heard a few people breathing. Awesome. Okay, let me illustrate what we do. And we do it 1,000 times a day. So how is that going to train? What's that going to train our throat to do? Right? Okay. Put one hand on your tummy, please. Put another hand on your pecs. Tighten your tummy like someone's going to punch you in the stomach. What happens to your chest?
Tightens.
Right. Isn't that interesting? Throat. Tighten. Yeah, a little bit. We can control it, and it doesn't happen for everybody, but for most of us. Okay? Now we're getting more and more subtle on the SCM, sternocleidomastoid. Tighten. Jaw joint. Right? Traps. Right on top. Tighten your tummy. And some of us are going to notice this more than others. And last one, lats on the back. Tighten your tummy. So we're armoring, and we'll talk more about this. So this time, I want to illustrate this even clearer. So I want you to hold your breath on purpose, tighten your tummy, and stand up, and notice what it feels like. Go. Oh, Sunday. Standing. Okay, back down. Now this time, I'd like you to go, and I want your imagination awake. You're going to send your imagination of your breath and energy through your feet, and you're going to sigh as you stand up. Watch, I'll do it first. Inhale, through the nose. Exhale, go. How did that feel? Exactly. Completely different from the way we tend to move. So that's flow, and what you're doing is you're engaging your core when you don't tighten this muscle, and we'll talk more about that. Inhale, exhale, sigh. Okay. So we will come back to that. So think about it for a moment. Every time you put on your pants, every time you lift something, every time you get out of the car, every time you bend over, every time you sit down to the piano, there's a good. And that is training our brain under stress to close the throat. Which is going to affect us as singers and actors and people. Doubt kills high notes. Hey, sopranos and tenors, do you ever notice that you have a bit of an emotional reaction when you see a ledger line on a piece of music? This tightening that we do when we think of something we don't like or that we have doubt and we don't even notice it. We go. That affects our support. It's very subtle, but we're all doing it. So we just want to know that they're there and not get rid of them because they're trying to protect us on some level. But we want to know they're there and start to talk to them and start to bring them into the performance as opposed to letting them freak us out in the background. This is not everybody, but there's two parts to our nervous system. This is what's famous out there. We're really not doing that anymore in our society. We're doing this. And what we'd like, relax, renew, rest, repair. And that's what we're going to be doing in the morning. We want to live in this state a little bit more as opposed to this state. Because this is exhausting. And what happens is if we are dealing with a bit of anxiety, which many people are these days, this is the default, right? So then we have to change hats to go on stage, or we try to change hats. But of course now there's an audience, and there's the 52 hours you put into this particular aria, right? So if we can learn how to live here a bit more, then we don't have to put on a different hat to perform, and we're more in our power. And that's also what we're doing in the mornings. Any questions so far, or thoughts, or additives, or anything? Okay. So I just want you to take a look at this if it is something that you've been thinking about. It's extremely prevalent. It's a big deal. It's not a big deal. We don't want to make it a bigger deal. But this is here to illustrate that it's not a voice problem and it's not your fault if you're working on any of these. Just know it and you can start to work with it. This isn't here to up the anxiety. Because anxiety makes the diaphragm stop working. We don't breathe as well into our lungs. We get shoulder tension, we get throat tension, we get SCM tension, we get jaw tension, we get temple tension. All of that affects this whole area. So if we can learn how to release some of this while we're singing, and that's the key, is use singing to release any anxiety we're dealing with, as opposed to singing making us up the anxiety. We're going to be much happier. Right? So what I'm offering is a way to warm up before you go to your voice lesson. That means that your voice teacher won't have to hack through the vocal tension in order to get to your free voice. It'll save a lot of time and a lot of money. And your voice teacher will be even happier with you. And specifically, that's what we're doing in the morning. ways to connect, ways to get back down here, to strengthen this and to release this. What can we do? I love that little guy, I just found him. Joy of singing. So we need to forget sometimes when we're working our butts off. So, yeah, we'll do that in a second. This is, I think, about as clear as I can get. In life, we tend to overuse all this, including this. We tend to underuse all this unless we're professional athletes. This is where the power is, not up here. I mean, these are just two little curtains flapping. What could they possibly be doing to you? It's not a vocal problem. Same thing with speech therapy. We get to this stuff, and 99%, unless there's some blood force trauma or birth issues, that's a different thing. But this stuff, mostly or all, goes away.
Can you go back one slide?
Yes, absolutely. Who's, I'm hearing there's a gentle, ghostly voice. There we go. Morgan, yes. You betcha. If we're overthinking our energies here, yes? If we're overthinking our energies here, that means our energy isn't in our power stability area. And we're not in it, we're not in flow. We've all felt it, where we're in the character and everything's just moving along and time goes fast and we love it and it's great and applause and blah, 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 blah. Then we try to find it the next time and, oh, where is that space? Well, what I'm offering is ways to find that space, to empower you to find that place. Got it? Thank you. I know it looks woo-woo. It's not. That's what we want. Remember the picture of the lady running in two opposite directions and disconnected right here? This is flow. This is what athletes talk about when they say we're in the zone. And what I'm working with is ways to get us there. After we've done all our homework. This is assuming we know the song, we know the text, we know the character, we've done our background work, right? There's another step after that that makes a performance magic. That's what we're after. Because you know, audience reactions, you've all had it. There's a difference between, he's a really good singer, and what is that? What's going on? This is what's going on. It's that next step that's so hard to talk about in flow. So this is simply a way, this is kind of the basis of everything, and it's simply a way, simply, to simplify things, just a little bit. Because there's so much to learn to being a quality singer. But in a way, and again, I'm not talking about diction, pronunciation, all that. I'm just talking about singing. That's it. That's what we have to learn. And life tends to, for many of us, take us out of here. And those of you that have done the sumo before and after singing that I do in the mornings, you've noticed the difference. Muscle tension, sometimes, even if we've got our diaphragm and support working beautifully, doesn't come up all the way because we have tension through here, and especially here. So we want to get rid of tension here so that the power, if it's there, is there. If the power isn't there, we want to build that up. And then a lot of this works better, the placement and resonance. But the cool thing is, and one of my very fine friends and fabulous singer and brilliant teacher, Benjamin Butterfield at the University of Victoria. He can make all this work by working on this. So it works both ways. He just stands in front of you and makes you laugh and does this with his fingers and talks about what he wants from you. And all of a sudden, support! And there's also, we can go from the bottom and help this. It's really cool how it can work. You can come at it from all different types of angles. It's just that for me, I tend to come from here. Not always, but most of it. Just a way to take the stress out a little bit. There's only 3 things. You know, this was illustrated to me very strongly. I conducted the Richard Eaton Singers, speaking of symphonic choirs in Edmonton, for a year while Ned Ratzlaff was on sabbatical. And that was the year we were touring to the Choral Festival in Nova Scotia. And so we had 80 singers, all of whom had been singing for years and years in the symphonic choir. And we ended up on a boat doing a whale watching and iceberg tour. And the captain of the boat, no, this was Newfoundland, sorry. Yes, it was Newfoundland. The captain of the boat found out that we were a choir and we were all singers. And I can't do a Newfoundland accent, so I'm probably gonna come out more like Slovenia, but anyway. He turned to us and said, "Oh, fantastic! Can you sing us a song then?" As he's piloting the boat. And we were all like, "Oh my God, you sing a song? Who's gonna pitch my? Can we sing anything?" And we had to work for half an hour to be able to just sing for this fellow, right? To get our pitch together, to go, okay, who wants to sing? And then he was like, "That's fantastic!" And then he railed off 4 songs while he was piloting the boat because it's easy for him. It's normal. It's just what he does. Right? And there was no airs about it. There was no it has to be perfect. He just let her rip. And we'd like to be in that. We'd like to be in that position. It's that old joke about asking an orchestral player to play Happy Birthday and all of a sudden they can't. But they can play Scream like nobody's business. All right, so moving along. Breath, respiratory system. We already know this. We've talked about this. The way we think and live our lives can confuse our respiratory system. Because we tend to not breathe with the diaphragm enough. We tend to breathe costally. And we tend to breathe too many times per minute. So it's shallow. Which means the diaphragm isn't dropping as far as we'd like for proper support to happen. Which means, so everyone stand up for a moment. So if we have tension down the midline, so take a high breath and keep your hand on your belly. Take a high breath. Which way does the tummy go? So take an improper high breath. Say it out loud. Which way does the tummy go? Inward, right, which means what didn't happen? Diaphragm didn't drop, right. So that means that as soon as we start to sing, our tummy is already close to the spine, and all it'll do is just go tighter and tighter, and we won't have any air. Yes? Now, I know you know this, but it's cool to do it anyway. So inhale diaphragmatically. Now you have space, and as you sing or talk, that diaphragm isn't going to end up at rock bottom, which is where we start to have to engage the 6-pack and rely on that that you were feeling when we stood up and down, right? Make sense? Any questions about that? Okay, have a seat. Stand up again. Exhale, have a seat. Thank you. Do that all the time, and you will notice a difference when you start singing. Every time you exert energy, every time you're at the gym, when you lift, exhale. Okay, you will notice a difference. Change your life, I swear to God. Because this is what we do want. We want power on the inhale, surrender on the exhale. And by surrender, I don't mean weak and noodle. What I mean is attitude, intention. Ha! Just let it go. Because where do we put all our thoughts and tension when we're singing? On the inhale or the exhale? If we're not aware of what I'm talking about. Yeah, on the exhale. Because that's where we have to think about diction. That's where you have to think about what we're singing about. That's where we have to think about pitch. That's where you have to think about what our teacher's thinking about. And so we end up with all this work happening on the expiration. The diaphragm releases on the exhalation. By its very nature, expiration is a relaxation response. But that's not how we tend to treat it. So if we get more power here, then this can work the way it's supposed to work. Am I numbing you out, or are you okay with this? Okay? But we're tending not to drop this diaphragm as low as we could. It doesn't mean tension, it means power. Not force, power. Force is when we're tight. So there's this feeling of, so let's illustrate that now. I'd like you to inhale costally, inhale wrong, inhale high, and then stand up on the side. So inhale badly, stand up on the side. Yeah. So you inhaled. Okay, now sit, exhale to sit. Now this time, for now, we don't always want this, but at the beginning, with beginning students, it's good to inhale loudly because then we become aware that we're actually breathing. So, loud inhale, lots of diaphragm, exhale, stand up. Difference in standing up? Yeah, way easier. That's your core. You just support it for singing because you didn't engage your six-pack, but we'll talk about that as we go. Awesome, thank you. Exhale, down, yay you. Okay, there's too many words here for a PowerPoint presentation, and I do apologize, but this is supposed to be fun. So let's stand up again. Never, careful what you wish for. Oh God, I'm going to be sitting for an hour and a half listening to a PowerPoint presentation. Oh man, he's making me sit up and stand up. All right, so number one, tighten your tummy, breathe high and fast. Good, don't do it for very long. That's what I call the Valsalva breath. This will cause all of this because you're overusing what we call the secondary respiratory muscles here in a way they weren't designed to be used. Okay? That's one. This is one that tends to happen, and it's nobody's fault, but it tends to happen in early choir. Don't breathe into your chest. Don't raise your shoulders. Right, kind of, but the choir teacher doesn't have time to say, well, yes, you're supposed to breathe into your lungs, and your chest raises, but that's because the diaphragm goes, because little Jimmy at 5 years old is like, WTF, all over it. Right? So we just tend to say, breathe low. So then we end up with this. Put your hand in your tummy. Do not move your chest at all, and just push your tummy out. In fact, don't even breathe, just push your tummy out. Right? And to a lot of us, that'll look like we're breathing. Right? But we're actually not. And it creates a weak core, there's no diaphragm, and if you do it for a few minutes, you'll notice jaw neck tension real fast. Because we're just basically pumping the six-pack in and out, which isn't breathing at all. Okay? That's another one. So as teachers, if we can identify what's going on even faster, then we can fix it even faster. Right? So I'm talking to all the future teachers here as well. Oh, I love this, the vampire breath. Okay, so this is when someone has told you, and they're right, to breathe into your back. And then because we're really smart and we work really hard at whatever our teacher says, we do this. Right? So I'm working like hell, but what happened to my diaphragm? Right? And then, oh, you know this posture? In singers? That's often the vampire breath, because I am going to get breath into that back and it kills me. And again, you'll get nowhere on a 12-bar phrase. Right? So, and the lungs aren't actually filling because the diaphragm is dropping. And all this stuff happens. Right? This is the worst one emotionally. None of you are doing this, but you may encounter a student that does this. This is usually caused, usually but not always, it can be asthma, but often it's trauma. And it doesn't have to be big trauma, it can be any trauma, but it can cause it. Put your hand on your tummy, and Don't do it for too long, but notice what your headspace does. Inhale, I always have to get this right. Inhale, pull your tummy in. Exhale, push it out. Do a couple. Yeah. Yeah. Feel what that feels like? Yeah. So if there is severe shock at a young age, or trauma, or anything like that, that's what will happen, and we have to catch that early. Because you can feel what that feels like. It is not good. And I've had 9-year-olds doing it, and I've had 40-year-olds doing it. On very rare occasions, it's, I have to pull my tummy in, body vanity, but usually that doesn't happen. Usually that one turns into this one. But we need to be aware of this. Anyone who is doing this is having either severe anxiety or panic attacks, no doubt. Because you could feel what happened to your brain when you did 2 of them. Imagine doing that for your whole life. We need to be aware of that. This is like the vampire. I think I talked to somebody about this yesterday. The accordion breath. So someone has said, rightly, that your ribs need to expand outwards. Now, put your hands on your ribs and do all your breath by getting those damn ribs out. Any chance your tummy just went in? Yeah. So there's no diaphragm again, right? So yes, ribs, but this tends to get overdiagnosed a bit in voice lessons, that, at least in my experience, that it's all about getting those ribs out. It's a part of it, but the ribs go out because the diaphragm goes down. Put your tummy on your hand. Your hand on your tummy, your other hand on your ribs. Breathe diaphragmatically. Your ribs should expand, and your chest should rise. But not with extra effort from rib muscles or chest muscles. This rises and moves because you breathe diaphragmatically. That's how the body works. Thoughts about that? Questions? Yeah. There is a major teacher in Vancouver, and I will not mention her name, who had a great career in Baroque singing, recordings and all, and she makes all her students lock their chests and not breathe, not move this at all when they sing. And every one of them have anxiety, and their voices are like this. And it is really upsetting. It is still out there. The chest is supposed to raise as long as the diaphragm drops. That's the physiological truth of it. We don't want, obviously, because I didn't do it with my diaphragm. We all know this, yes? This is supposed to move naturally, right? And last one, this is very similar to the Valsalva. Often, again, this one often happens from too much or incorrect work at the gym or body vanity and holding this whole tummy in real strong all the time. And so suck your tummy in by clenching your six-pack, like clenching your tummy, like you're going to do a number 2, and hold it there. Yeah, you can feel it, right? So you'll see some athletes with that, but not high-level athletes. Because high-level athletes know the instant they tighten their six-pack, they're done. If they're Olympic-level athletes, they know this is not supposed to engage, but somehow it gets lost in translation at the gyms. So, Merry Christmas. Yes, any questions?
Is the last one sort of like bearing down? Do you know that term?
Yes, it's
The
like
last
doing
one
a
is
number
bearing
2.
down.
Yep. Yeah, we're going to talk more about this, but but the number 2 is also the Valsalva. So the bearing down is the Valsalva and the Trojan Ocean, but it can cause any of these, but except for that one. But we're going to talk more about that. Yes.
Also, with the last one, it says sing long phrases. Does it mean you can get away with singing for a long time?
Yeah, it's so, yes, it's, the sound isn't good, right? But what happens is they can fool you, because they're not actually exhaling. They can go, they won't have spin and they won't have vibrato, but in choir they'll look like the best singer in the room because they'll be able to go on forever because they're not actually breathing, right? So it's kind of tricky. You won't get away with, one won't get away with long with that for very long in voice lessons, but in choir, that happens a lot. Yeah, thank you for catching that. That does look anti what I was saying, but yeah, you can totally fool people and be the longest singer, but you're not actually breathing. Thank you. Have a seat.
I have one
Oh,
more
yeah,
question.
another question. Well, have a seat and yes.
Circular breathing? Circular breathing?
Yes.
Fits into any of this anywhere. Now that's, I think.
You mean
is that
like
more
what
an
trumpet
instrument?
players do and such?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I have tried to do it. I can't. I get it, but I don't understand it, so no. Yeah, because I don't want to teach anything I don't understand. So I mean, what by understand, I mean I get it intellectually. I know what they're doing. They're taking short inhales through their nose as they blow out through their mouth. That's how they do it. That's circular breathing. You can breathe forever that way. But I could never manage to do it, and I thought there's other things I want to spend my life on. So yeah, I don't have an answer to that. Yes.
In terms of feeling, because you can't actually feel your diaphragm.
Correct.
So when you say take a diaphragmatic breath,
Yes, I'm so glad you asked that. So, yes, that's one of those pieces of information that's floating out there that you can't feel your diaphragm. Great, they're right, but I don't think it's a helpful piece of information, really. Because then some of us go, oh, I can't feel my diaphragm. Okay, that means this is even more confusing. So, correct, you can't feel your diaphragm, but what you can feel is your stomach and your liver and your intestinal tract being pushed down by your diaphragm.
kind of another question.
Meaning, yes, you totally can, but does that answer that one?
Yes.
So yes, physiologically, functionally, you can't feel your diaphragm, but you can feel what the diaphragm does, so who cares? On some level, as long as you can feel and you have interoception down here, that you can tell that the tummy is going out because something is dropping, even though you can't feel it's dropping. Next question.
So since the diaphragm is like this,
Yep.
the transverse goes up and the diaphragm goes down. I think this is why I'm confused.
The transverse goes up.
Because if you engage your transverse muscle, then is that not making the diaphragm drop, and then that in turn gives you the room to breathe.
Okay,
That's what
all right. Just have to check on your question, because what you said right there was right, but the transverse up isn't
Just
right.
in feeling, I guess, if you engage it, then it.
Okay, well, this is a perfect example of feeling support differently.
Right.
The muscle fibers of the, okay, transverse abdominis, sorry, we've gone down a rabbit hole and I want to make sure. Transverse abdominis, yes or no? Put up your hand if you don't know what that is, and please be brave. Okay, awesome. So, the transverse abdominis is the big girdle muscle, 3 layers in. It's the deepest abdominal muscle. The six-pack is the surface most muscle. Okay, and that's the one we don't want to use because it has nothing to do with core. We'll get to more of that in a second. To answer your question, the muscle fibers of the transverse abdominis go laterally, not up. So your transverse is not going up physiologically. It might feel like it. You're right. Keep it, but just know that functionally it's not.
Okay.
That's why so many people, when they, how do you feel support? They say, I do not, remember I said, I do not know, but it feels like something is doing this. I feel like that's the transverse abdominis going this way.
Okay.
So as the transverse abdominis goes that way, yes, that creates space for the diaphragm to go down. Now, whether you want to feel like the transverse is going first or the diaphragm is going first, I don't care, however it works for you. But technically, the brain is sending a message to the diaphragm first. But if you feel it differently, good with that. Does that work? Anyone else want to chime in on that, or I don't want to? We're going to come to more of the transverse because it's important. Because we all hear tighten your abs, work your core. Okay, what abs and what core? And that's what I want to make clear today and what we're going to really be working on in our morning sessions. Thank you. Yes. Okay. Moving right along. What's breath therapy? It's about returning your Great. Can't say it. That's a good breath therapist if I can't even say respiratory. There we go. Meaning the way we used to breathe when we were kids, before life happened. want power on the inhale, surrender on the exhale. So, here's what I was saying before, just for those of you that are visual. Now, we as singers, we're using more of this, but what tends to happen with most of the general public and beginning singing students you might get is they're breathing this much at this point in the respiratory cycle. So what I'm saying is, this is the top of your best inhale, this is the bottom of your best exhale. So the full amount that you can breathe. Most people in life are breathing here. Like up to 24 times a minute. Healthy breathing, PS, is 8 times a minute. Asthmatics, this is gold. Anxiety, this is gold. Panic attacks, this is gold. You have to shorten your BPMs, your breath per minute. Anxiety breath up here. If we're feeling a little sad, we tend to breathe down here. But the point is, we're only breathing that much. So then, as teachers, we have to deal with the fact that we have a hardened habit of how to breathe. Right? And so what happens is, all the oxygen receptors in the lungs turn off down here. We forget that we can breathe down here. I want to illustrate this now. What you're going to do is you're going to inhale power, you're going to surrender your breath, and then I want you to drift and do nothing. So let's do it all together. Inhale power, exhale sigh surrender. Now wait, no inhale. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Breathe. Now, we're singers, so we're a bit more used to it. But anyone feel any little panicky, I have to inhale? Yep, definitely. So what that is your lungs telling your brain that you're gonna die. And that you have to inhale, right? So what we can do is we can extend that feeling lower, because first it'll happen here, especially with anxiety and asthma, and then it'll happen here, and then it'll happen here, and then it'll happen here, and then it'll happen here. This is how I cured my asthma. And this is how I mostly cured my anxiety. Is dropping that exhale farther and farther and farther and farther and farther and farther and farther. Because asthmatics are deathly afraid of the exhalation because they'll die. Because as soon as they start to exhale, they cough and the phlegm comes up and puffer and all this stuff. And now I get people off puffers all the time. And it's about lengthening the exhale as opposed to breathing up here. Josie.
So, I'm just a little confused with the placement of the depression breath.
Awesome. Okay. So this is very basic. Because often people who deal with depression have a layer of anxiety about the depression over top of the depression. But what I'm meaning is anxietals tend to, so if we inhale 3/4 of the way up the inhale and then stay there and breathe, that's what anxietals tend to do. With depressives, they tend to exhale 3/4 of the way down the end of the exhale and stay there. Did that answer your question?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what breath therapists that work with this sort of thing, we get the depressives breathing up here and we get the anxietals breathing down here. So we get them exhaling farther if they're anxiety and inhaling farther if they're dealing with depression. And there's a way more to that. It's very basic, but just wanting to give you visuals, a picture of what tends to happen up there. Yes?
When you say dropping farther and farther into the exhale,
Yes.
does that mean challenging yourself to exhale longer, more, be more in touch with how empty you can become?
Yes, totally, yes. And what tends to be out there in the hospitals, which is totally missing the point, is inhale 8, hold for 7, exhale for 10, or something like that. And that hold is the problem. Is I've not asked you to hold your breath. We're already holding our breath too often in life, right? So this whole thing that's happening about breathing, which is like slow down the exhale, to me is totally wrong. So I'm not saying, you notice, I'm saying, dump your air and then wait, because you're still exhaling. There's more air down there than we think. The lungs can't fully deflate. And you'll notice if you practice that, you can sing longer and longer phrases. That's what happens. It's not that this, what I'm saying, is the breathing you'll do on stage. It's that it's preparing you to do better breathing on stage. That was a lot. More questions? Yes.
In that in between, like, so we do that, we have an inhale, you want us to hold our breath in between the,
No,
no?
no,
Not at all.
not at all, not at all. Because we're already holding our breath. We want to inhale power, float for a second, like when we prepare a note, but it's, by float, I mean trying to take in more air. What people are tending to do out there when they practice breathing is going, because that's a hold, and that's what I'm trying to get us out of. So you keep the larynx open, you keep the glottis open, you float for a couple of seconds, then you dump your air, and I'll explain more about that in a sec, and then drift. And that increases your ability to sing a long line. Yes, sir.
I'm getting a little confused. Well,
Please.
yes, the breathing power.
Yes.
I'm
Just what the hell do I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, this is hard to do sometimes because so often we're thinking as opposed to noticing. I want us to all try the following. So, let's put our hands on our chests. Breathe in fully costally, so breathe high. And then exhale. Inhale costally. Exhale. So, can you feel an emotional connection, a feeling to that kind of breathing? Can you connect a feeling to that kind of breathing? Do it again. What do you feel emotionally? Exasperation, stress, tightening, yeah. Okay, right, okay. Now this assumes that we're all breathing really well diaphragmatically. So, should we stand up? I think we should. Okay. That'll help us breathe really well. So, inhale, not with force, but with a good amount of fire to it. And sigh. Again. Is there something emotional you can connect to that? It's real subtle. Yeah. That's what I mean. That's what I mean. And for people who are new to singing, they have no concept that breathing deeply can feel empowering or powerful. That's all. Yeah, have a seat. Because then, what are we doing? We're becoming more powerful, we become more confident, and then our stage presence becomes better, and then, right. Diaphragmatic breathing is huge for everything. We'll be doing a bit of this, identifying where we're breathing, where we're not. A whole ton of you are doing this in the voice lesson. Sorry, yes, Michelle, I'll come to you. This is a golden way to get everything that we're talking about to just work better and not have to think about anything. This is super cool how this works, and those of you that have done it, you know it. Yeah, it just helps everything. We'll do that in the yoga. Michelle?
Sorry, before you move on,
Yeah.
I'm just a little bit curious about nose breathing.
Yes.
I try to avoid it when teaching because I feel like it creates so much tension, like
Right.
in the throat, the sternocleidomastoid, as well as like the larynx lifts. So you're saying like the ultimate breath really can, I think that's what I heard.
Yes.
Is that like you feel the most actually when you breathe through the nose? How can you incorporate that into singing?
Okay. I totally get what you're saying. And I will almost guarantee you it's not the nostril breathing that's creating the tension. The tension is already there and the nostril breathing is showing it. So if we're nostril breathing properly, it's completely relaxing to all this. It's mouth breathing that will create tension here. Now, there's also two different answers. Life breathing, keep your mouth closed. Life breathing, keep your mouth closed. Because it slows down the number of breaths per minute, which is healthy for the immune system and ups the energy. and it builds heat, which is good in Canada. This is why power, right? This is why power yoga keeps the mouth closed, because they want to build heat as they're working through a vinyasa or something, or what's the English term for vinyasa? Sun salutations. Power, strong yoga stuff. You keep the mouth closed. Now, okay, that's one answer. So in life, keep your mouth closed. Inhale, exhale through your mouth. If you're dealing with stress and you want to get rid of whatever you're feeling or whatever you've just gone through, exhale through your mouth. Okay? So exhaling through your nose is always better in life. I'm coming to the second part in a sec. Exhaling through your mouth releases stress. Exhaling through your nose builds heat. If you're dealing with a cold or a flu, if you can breathe through your nose, do it. Okay. Now to singing. So inhaling through your nose activates the diaphragm better, period. That's a physiological truth. Because the direction that it's going and the fact that the tubes are smaller helps the diaphragm engage and drop. That's not me, that's just physiology. That's how it works. Whereas a mouth breath, until you train it as a singer, will not activate the diaphragm as well. So, inhale through the nose. Feel what happens with your diaphragm. Exhale. Now breathe through your mouth. Do you feel the same sense of power? No. But the idea is, of course, if you have a 16th note to breathe, you shouldn't be breathing through your nose. Right? Because your support, your Appoggio is already there, you have to go and have it. So the idea is we need to train a mouth breath to be as good as a nostril breath. Keep going, Michelle.
And just one other question
Yeah.
about those breathing is, what is the ultimate, do you feel the ultimate position for the tongue? Because for me, I always feel like my tongue is resting under my mouth, which makes my throat feel tight.
Oh boy.
Maybe that's just
Yeah, there's a barrel of monkeys right there. You know, what I'll say, if anyone else wants to chime in on this, what I will say is this, to me, this is exactly the same thing as what I said about support. Is, as teachers, you will need to sometimes lie to your students. Because there's a difference between what's true and what they need to hear for a few lessons. So there are some students, for instance, I'll go to something else that happens a lot, who are over-opening their throat. So they've been told to make space in the back of the throat, and what that actually is jamming the tongue down on the larynx. Everyone understand that?
Yeah.
So it sounds really good to a high school boy to do this in choir, because I sound manly, right? But this is as bad as raising the tongue and causing your sound to go up here. This is raising your larynx, right? So we don't want to overdrop it, we don't want to raise it, right? So to somebody who comes in as a student and is doing this, I will say, close your throat. And all of a sudden their throat will relax. Now I don't want them to close their throat, but it worked. And then I'll tell them the truth after. So that's what I mean by this. I find the same thing with the tongue. I feel like some students need to hear drop your tongue back and down, and some need to hear drop your tongue back and forward. And I had one and I said, could you just raise your tongue? And then all of a sudden the vowels were here. And then I'll explain it later. So for me, I feel like it's down and slightly forward. But I've said that to some people and it totally messes them up. Yeah, Monica?
Are you talking about the tip of your tongue just now, or the?
Well, that's just it. For me, what do you say? I don't know what you think.
This is a super interesting question. I find that I love to breathe through my nose, but I sort of had to figure it out because I find most students, when they're doing a nose breath, it becomes a presentational breath.
Yes.
And that's all the same stuff we're talking about. So the preparation is, and they're also thinking hard, so the tip of the tongue has to be jammed into the roof of the mouth.
Yep.
Which makes any kind of real breath simply impossible. And
Yes.
so this can come, I find, either if you're trying to make noise to present the breath,
Yep.
in which
Yep.
case everything is tight,
Yes.
or if you're trying to be perfectly silent, which is also
Which is also tough,
also
yes.
problematic. So I think, I mean, for me, if I just think breathing into a soft, easy space, preparing, if you will, by making sure that I'm not in that hyper thinking place where I certainly will put my tongue into my mouth.
Yeah.
So I have to just make sure that's out of the way. So it's not actually, my tongue at rest is just hanging there.
Yeah, it's neutral.
It's neutral.
And whatever.
It's floating.
Yeah,
It's
Me too.
floating.
yeah.
I use that word a lot.
And you see, that's what we're after, and that's exactly what I'm saying about, can you just close your throat? We're looking for a neutral larynx, right? So I'd agree with everything you said, Monica, and what I'm trying to do in the yoga classes is, my theory is that the reason that that inhale through the nose turns into a presentational breath is the life stuff here. So if we can start to get rid of that, then the inhale through the nose is not. But yes, absolutely, what you said, yes.
Well, and I think just the differentiation, if I'm understanding then from listening to both parties then, is that this is the prepare to sing versus the sing, and that what you're doing in the life creates the tension that then when you try, that's your point about the hats, then you have to
Yes.
switch
Yes.
the hats to go. So if when you're in your daily life being a nose breather helps you be very relaxed and whatever, then you're gonna go into your singing lesson being
Yeah.
in a better place.
But most of us don't. Most of us are tending to be mouth breathers. And then when we close our mouth, then it becomes effort. Right?
And
Yes.
if I could just
Please.
confess, I had to sort of teach myself at night going to sleep, because you know how sleep can be hard. So to actually just say, let go of your damn tongue.
Mhm.
Stop thinking, because
Absolutely.
I'll be lying in bed going, part of that clenchy thing people do,
Yep.
like me, and if I just actually say words to myself in my head, just let your tongue go, just let it go and take some breaths, and just saying it helps.
What Monica is doing there is talking to the back of her brain where the habits are, which is awesome. It's a similar thing to what we're going to be doing in the morning. We're going to be creating a situation where all the stuff that we have to hack through in order to warm up starts to drop away. And then our lives are easier and more simple. Thank you. Yeah, oh, yes,
In that previous exercise on the medicine ball,
yes.
if you have like tight back muscles, does that help start to stretch and release them as well?
Which back muscles?
I don't know if I can identify it, but yesterday when I was doing it, because I went to the gym during our break, and I was
Yep.
like doing it at the gym.
Yep.
After doing it for about 5 minutes, my back started to like protest a little bit.
Okay.
And I
But
know I have really tight back muscles, so I'm
You
wondering
don't
if
have,
you were just
you don't have to give me the Latin, but lower, middle, or upper.
middle and lower.
Okay, lower we want to be careful. If you're feeling it in upper and middle, perfect. That's what we want, but we don't want any sciatica sort of stuff happening.
Yeah.
Because sometimes if we're tight, it can stretch it too much, so we'd only do it for a couple of minutes.
Right.
But a lot of us will feel a ton of pain around here, and that's perfect. Stay there and deal with it. Because then your inhalation through your nose will be easier, right? Because this shines a big flashlight on all the tension we're holding up here that we don't know we have. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, does that work?
Yeah.
Yeah, lower back, when we get anything in the lower back, we want to be careful. Yes.
Sorry, question about that exercise as well.
Yeah.
Will we be practicing that in the mornings or?
No, because I didn't, for some reason, I didn't bring 33 large exercise balls in my Mazda down from Edmonton. But we will be doing it in voice lessons.
Okay.
Well, if it's appropriate, if it's necessary for the student. Yeah.
I was just wondering, when you're doing that posture, for the neck
Yep.
placement, like how do you know, what are the cues to know that you're actually aligning it perfectly? Because like from the ball, you might be like over pronating or something.
Ooh, that's a really awesome question. I won't let you overpronate.
Or like if you're
Yeah, but okay. To answer it as succinctly as I can, in a way it doesn't matter in this pose, unless you have a neck issue. What this pose is doing is what most yoga poses can't, is it's catching your entire fascial line along the front of your body and getting it to restorative yoga release so that you have more space. So if there's anything going on with the neck that is too pronated, I will drop the student farther forward on the ball. Right? So there's none of this, but all of us almost can release more through here, unless we have a neck injury. So you're just hanging there. It's not supposed to be the perfect position while you're in it. It's catching all the fascia and trying to return it to normal. Does that work?
Right. I just find, like, for me personally, I have really tight cuffs.
Yep.
And so I hunch.
Yeah, it's okay. This isn't the only one.
Does that help?
You're also going to be on your back on this.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a balancing thing. I just had this as one of the many weapons.
Oh.
Yeah. Yes.
Are there other tools or props that you can use that will do the same thing if
Yes.
you don't own a medicine ball?
The little balls. Cat twist, happy puppy, downward dog, upward dog. We're going to be doing it in the yoga classes, in the vocal yoga classes. You betcha. This isn't the only one. It was just a picture that I liked that I wanted to. Here's another one that I like to use. Yeah, we know that. We know that. We know that. I like this one. It looks confusing, but it's not. Learn this surrender sigh that I'm going to be teaching you, please. Just let go. Because holding your breath is saying no to whatever you're doing in life. Deep thoughts. Holding your breath is saying no. Which we want sometimes, but we'd like to be aware of it. So this is what I use for panic attacks and anxiety. It's how to work with that. It's how to get out of a panic attack. Straight ahead. Holding our breath is a way to put us into fight or flight. The lion jumps out from behind the rock and chases us. We want to be in fight or flight. We don't want to sing in an aria. Okay? So all of those higher end functions go away, and everything goes into the legs, and we run like hell. The point is, that's supposed to be over in 5 minutes, but a lot of us are living there. And so that causes us to hold our breath the whole time. And so this is what this is actually doing. It's giving the brain permission, to give the nervous system permission, to give the fascia muscles permission to just let go. And then we're regulating ourselves at normal as opposed to heightened with armoring on, and we just perform better. We're almost there. This is what I was showing you by standing up and sitting down. Remember how it felt to hold your breath and move. Remember how it felt to sigh and move. It's training you to be a singer. Okay? So, inhale. Exhale, sigh, stand up. Excellent. You just engaged your core. That's core training. Good. Down again, please. This time, I want you to go, ha, or hey, if you like that vowel better, I tend to, and send that through your imagination, energy through your feet, and stand up. Inhale, and go. Hey! How's your stand up in relation to even the exhale? Even stronger, right? Feels like we're lighter than we are. That means your power is engaged. That means when you sing, your core and your appoggio will be better. See? So that's all this thing is about. So, we'll talk more about this. 6-pack, surface muscle. Tighten your tummy like someone's going to punch you in the stomach. Now breathe diaphragmatically. You can't do it. When people say tighten your core, this is the muscle we'll go to because it's the surface most muscle. It is not core. It is absolutely not core. It's a little 5% core helper. There's your core, 3 layers in, and along with the internal obliques. So this tightening the muscle, you remember it, I won't make you do it, it's for pooping, giving birth, throwing up, and for being chased by a tiger. but not for performing. Who wants to poop, throw up, and give birth on stage all at once? Well, unless, you know, California, and, you know, performance art goes pretty wild. Yeah, we know that. Yes, there it is. Remember the tighten here and then put your hand all over your, that's what's going on. All this tension, it's armoring. So if we're into acting, we can't connect with our fellow actors and our audience. And acting is becoming a bigger part of operatic singing now than it used to be. You can't just park and bark anymore. Well, you can, but they prefer we not. So look, do I look available to you? Okay. How about now? That's armor, right? As soon as I do that, you can feel it. Right? There it is. There's the picture for you visuals. That's the transverse abdominis. Look at that big muscle. That looks like something that could help you sing. And look at that. Doesn't that look like a, I don't know, like a support cylinder? That's your core. There's more muscles involved, but just to simplify it, that's your core, not this. And we will do a whole bunch of exercises coming, Julia, sorry.
Yeah.
We will do a whole bunch of exercises to help you internally feel the difference between this and this. Because it's tricky. But once we feel it, you'll never go back. Doing that crunch thing. You know the Godfather? How he talks? You know, after you've killed 400 people, you tend to get a little anxietal and tight. That's what that does over time. That's the vocal damage, is right from here. And then everything tightens and, right? So actors have to learn how not to clench this when they're acting like they're anxietal on stage. It takes time. And if you're singing my favorite aria from my favorite opera, and you're in a sack with a knife in your back, and you're trying to sing a high C, you can't be tightening this, Gilda. And you'll notice they're in all sorts of weird positions. Often sitting up, but still, you get my point. You've got to learn how not to engage that. And that goes for choreography, for dancing, and for musical theater as well. Here's the key. When you stop tightening your six-pack, your core automatically engages. That's the cool part. You don't necessarily have to do 200,000 Pilates leg lifts in order to make your core work. Core work doesn't have to be sweat, sweat, sweat. Let go of your six-pack. Do some of this standing. Notice how you start to change the way you move, and all of a sudden that core will be there. And this will make so much more sense inside when we do start doing the morning sessions. Yeah, you got that. This is our panic button right here. This is our power center. When we tighten here, our power center goes off. And it's hard to find Appoggio. So we're going to work on a whole bunch of finding this and this and this. And I've talked to some students about this during singing. Does anyone tend to feel like their support comes from up here? Ever? Yeah. We want it from down here. This will engage a little bit, but only because this does. And that's tricky to find, but that's what we work on. Yes?
I was told in a Pilates class that if you like dig your fingers in just under your hip bones and slightly in,
Yeah.
and do a surrender sigh, you can feel your internal
Transverse?
transverse abdominis engaged. Is that true? Is that like something
Yes.
we could use as a part?
100%.
Oh.
You betcha. Yeah, lower six-pack, pyramidalis, psoas, lower transverse. That's where our oomph comes from. You got it. Yeah, that's absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I'm surprised you can feel the transverse through the pyramidalis in the six-pack, but I get it and I like it. Even if it's not physiologically true, it works.
Oh.
I don't know. That's just, I need to work on that one a little bit, because there's 3 layers of muscles between you and the transverse when your hands are there, but who knows. I just want to show you what fascia looks like. almost done. This is not muscle, this is fascia. This is why you tighten here. So fascia connects every muscle and every ligament to every other muscle and every ligament in the body. It's like the top of a fried egg yolk.
So like a silver spoon.
You got it, yes, yep. And so when we tighten here, it sends a message to the communication network to tighten all through here, because that's our front line, protect our gushy stuff from the tiger. So of course we're gonna tighten it, but not on stage, because we should be having fun. So yeah, isn't that cool? That's a whole bunch of lines that go all throughout the body. And this is why Chinese medicine works, this is why acupuncture, this is why you can do a little pressure on your foot to help headaches. It's because everything's connected. Oh my God, it's so new age. This is a cool one. There's a fascial line called the tongue line. It goes straight from your pelvic floor to your tongue. So we are going to be working on making your pelvic floor healthier, and that is why when people's diaphragms are not working, their tongues are no such thing as a voice problem. No such thing as a voice problem. Pressure points. I worked with this on quite a few of you. These are spots that can help release your voice and or your resonance. It's really cool. If you're interested, I can, if you want to take a picture, you can. If you're not into it, that's totally fine. But this is, from one perspective, what we're doing when we do the ball work and the twists and the yoga and and it can also be done by people that do pressure point. Pressure point, people know all about that. There's another term for it, something release therapy, trigger release, all that stuff. Just know this, please. Just know this. Remember when you asked this excellent question about power with kids? When they feel their core, even if they don't know it's core and they can't explain it, they feel strong and powerful, and we want that. Tightening our six-pack makes us weak and ineffectual. So what we're going to be doing in the mornings is specific targeting of the muscles and fascia that are messing with your voice. And then engaging and strengthening the muscles that help your voice. I only do this one for that one. There's an entire book called Emotional Anatomy. It's brilliant. It's out of print, of course, because it's so brilliant. What does this tell you about me?
You don't wanna be here.
Yeah. Shy, maybe.
Yep. What does this tell you about me?
More conflict, tension.
Right. So, if we can get feelings of empowerment by engaging our core, we feel better and our Appoggio is better. I know how it sounds, but it's true. Yeah, we know that one. Yeah, that's all right. Let's skip that. We can skip that. Oh yeah, there's way more than one diaphragm in the body, by the way. And they all work together. Those of you that know stuff about pelvic floor, if your pelvic floor diaphragm goes down, so does your thoracic. If your thoracic does, so does your pelvic floor. They're all diaphragms. Diaphragm is just something that does this. Your larynx is a diaphragm, kind of. Your soft palate is definitely a diaphragm. And they all talk to each other through fascia. So the moves that we'll be doing, and the yoga that we'll be doing, is working on getting all of these going so that we're doing full body singing as opposed to up here, where we're fully engaged. Yes?
I'm confused as to how the pelvic floor works when you sing versus like when you go to the bathroom.
Well, that's an awesome question. I don't think we have time today.
Okay.
But I will mention that again in the classes in the morning. Yeah. That's a very good question. We have to do some research before I answer that. I do know that when all the diaphragms work together, so that as the thoracic goes down, so does the pelvic floor. And as it rises, so does the pelvic floor. So they're all supposed to be in sync. But as far as number two, I'm not exactly. I think somebody else in here will know more about that than me. Blah, 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 blah. Work with the voice. Yeah, oh, this is cool. That's how it actually works. That's that Newfoundland boat guy. Unless there's stuff in the way. We hear a note, and the whole system just creates the perfect environment to sing that note. Unless we're doubting, or wondering, or thinking. It's kind of miraculous. Now, there's more to it, but it's nice to know this. We've all felt it at times. We've all felt it. Just like, it's just there. Everything's good. Then another time we're like,
Oh, yeah.
we hear this a lot, and it turns into a thinking thing. So, see how that is explaining that? Anyone want to take a shot? Okay, stand up is the last thing we'll do. Sorry. Thank you for your patience. So put your hand on your tummy and just go, hey!
Hey!
What happened? Did it work?
Yeah.
Did something move down here? Okay, there you go. That's singing. You didn't. My point is, you didn't go. Okay, now I'm going to support, and now I'm going to do pelvic floor. Oh! You didn't. You just went, hey, because it's something you knew you had to do. Go, hey, hey, hey. Good. Feel how that just did it. Sing to support. You have a thought in your head. You're in character. You know you need to sing that note. You hear the note. Boom, it's there. Unless we've got stuff in the way. It's nice to know that's natural. Have a seat. I've got a bunch of vocal exercises, vocal therapy techniques that I talked too much so we didn't get to, and that's okay. We'll talk about them in lessons. Oh, hey, we're near the end. So just taking a look at that again. That's what we'll be playing with in the morning. Fundamentals. Do you know how many opera singers that are traveling all over the world that we know from YouTube and are famous at the top of their game, but are still working on their breathing? It's okay. And they're beating the crap out of themselves before and after every show. Didn't quite nail that. Good line. Yep.
What do you mean with active imagination? It's like
That you are in the character and in the text and in flow, not thinking about what you're doing while you're on the stage. That's what tends to happen. All the work, the prep work, with young singers, we often take that into the performance instead of trusting that we know it and now dropping into character and living it. Yeah, living it. Yeah. Being in that part of the brain, not the thinking brain as much. So we reverse the cycle that might be happening. I love those pictures. And remember this, interoception is inner awareness, kind of. Muggle interoception is I have a headache or I'm hungry. That's Muggle interoception. Wizard interoception is what we're doing. What's my diaphragm doing? What's my support doing? Is my airflow free? Do I have tension that's holding back my E-bowel? Can I feel that immediately and then do something about it? That's what we're working on. Get your students feeling good about themselves, and everything else you teach them about singing will work faster. And better. And, everybody got a picture that wanted a picture? Whoops, and perfect. It just exploded. Awesome.
And done.
And that's somebody telling me you're done, buddy. Just stop talking. Yeah, okay, we're done. It just had a picture. It had a picture of a baby sitting at the piano going, and looking very happy, involved in the joy of singing as opposed to thinking about it. Are there any questions before we go? Y'all looking forward to the yoga? Say yes.
Yes!
Thank you so much.
Let's all give David a big round.